So there are many reasons to love Phil Tunstall. Possibly because he used to be a pizza artist, which is similar in name to many people who have graced the Talking Tale stage. Definitely because of Legs for Africa, a charity that helps people walk by recycling prosthetic limbs. Ask Phil about that. But most of all, in this moment, love Phil Tunstall because he is going to take us to the stars. With Clifford's telescope, please welcome Phil.
Clifford nudged the dead blackbird with his boot and grinned with one side of his mouth as he stooped over to pick it up. He examined its upside-down frozen body as he held it in front of his face by a single twiggy leg. The wings were splayed awkwardly and its beak smashed in. Must have died on impact. Clifford shuffled down his driveway towards the bins, dropped the bird into the composter, and looked up at the telescope's dome. A proud smile. The polished glass so clean it tricked the bird into its own demise. Night had darkened the clouded sky, and winter's crispness chilled his nostrils. He pulled his scarf around his face and grimaced at its dank scent, having sat in the dormant washing machine too long before moving to the dryer. He'd been so busy recently, all in preparation for tonight. Clifford looked at the moon, full and bright, and thought about time and the universe, which he liked to do. He held up his hand and clicked twice. 1.3 seconds in between clicks. That was the time it took for the moonlight to reach his eye. It was 1.3 light seconds away. The sun was 8 minutes away. If it was to disappear suddenly, on a hot day, a pale-skinned person could get sunburnt in those 8 minutes by a sun that no longer existed. Some stars in the sky probably died 1,000 years ago, and humans will be seeing them for another 1,000 before they disappear. Every object in the sky is a different distance away and a different age. So on a starry night, you are looking at a mosaic of the history of the universe. He stood blinking at the sky in awe, and his brain began to feel numb with overwhelming thoughts about time. Time to focus, Clifford told himself. He could feel himself getting distracted and reached into the inside pocket of his long coat for his vaporizer and canister box. He fumbled through the different solutions and picked out the light blue one. He squinted at the small pattern on its side, and his ear chip began its information recital in her calm, soothing voice. Attentiveness canister by Mood Babes for increasing cognitive focus. Use a maximum of twice a week, as overuse may cause... Shut up, Marjorie, Clifford instructed, and the ear chip fell silent. He popped the canister in and inhaled the tangy chemical-tasting steam deep into his lungs. His mind cleared instantly. He was pulled back from his thoughts and left staring at the moon. You couldn't see any of the moon bases with your naked eye, but Clifford knew where they were. It was the one in the Clavius crater that he had been doing business with, the one owned by Tesco. It had taken a lot of convincing and money to get the small moon-based team to build and install the mirror. It had cost more than he'd spent on building and refining his telescope, but he had done that on his own. He felt a rise of adrenaline. Those fuckers at Clifton Observatory Astronomical Society are going to wish they were part of this, he thought. They'll tune into my channel to watch, bound to, probably waiting for me to fail. They'll invite me back to the club. I'll refuse. I'll probably be joining the Royal Society. I won't have time for such a small, inconsequential group. After the initial bafflement that no one would fund his amazing idea, he now felt a certain pride that he'd done it on his own. Project Time Camera was his, and all of the glory that would come with it. It is time to commence operations, Marjorie told him. Clifford closed the door behind him and looked up at the 12-metre high telescope. standing proudly erect through the centre of his hollowed-out mansion in Sea Mills. It pointed straight up through the glass dome towards the starry sky. The full moon would be directly above him in just 10 minutes. He sat on his stool, put on his virtual viewing goggles, and grabbed his two thumb controllers. The interface flicked on, and the telescope whooshed its electronic hum as it extended and retracted the lens, calibrating itself awake. He could see the telescope's view of the night sky come into focus. "Marjorie, turn on the camera and go live with the feed." "Done," she answered back. And an image of himself sitting on his stool appeared in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and the blinking recording light next to the clock display. He still had 9 minutes left before the moon was at its optimal alignment. It had been 15 years since he had first had the idea, triggered by a talk on space echoes at the Archivology Convention in Bath. When people realise that we can see back in time, he thought, they will go wild. I will be the most famous scientist this decade. A mirror on the moon is just the start. It will look back at ourselves on Earth a few seconds ago, but mirrors throughout space will show Earth was at different times through history. Oh, the ideas people will have, looking at past loved ones, at the big events in their own life, and further back too, solving crimes, looking at history, the blowing up of Parliament in 2020, seeing Jesus on the cross, the building of the pyramids, human migration over the ages, an unlive stream from the past. They'll be colonising Mars soon. The mirror there would let us see a whole 8 minutes into the past, as our own images travel from Earth and bounce back at the speed of light. The other planets would add more minutes. Pluto would be 13 hours. This was going out live, Clifford realised. He should probably say something instead of sitting there like a lemon. It would be live on people's devices, his goggle-covered face appearing on their screens. I should have prepared a speech, he thought. I need something profound. It has to be something that people will quote me on for years to come, all over the world. Something for the history books. The past is in the future. Perfect, he thought. It had come out of nowhere. He glanced at his viewer stats. 36. It would grow. People will be sharing this. He added, astronomy is about looking out and observing the universe. It is a humbling and character-building experience. The history of planet Earth and humanity is out there, floating around, just waiting to be captured. Tonight, I will show the world how. Clifford was feeling confident. The negative comments don't affect me, he thought. I'm stronger than rejection. I've done it. Project Time Camera may have no commercial use. Immediately, he remembered the US government's response to his funding request. They are not forward thinkers. If I invest $1 billion to see who assassinated President Oprah Winfrey, and it is a cloudy night when the time mirror aligns, then we will not be pleased. And how are you going to get a mirror 4 light years away anyway? Doubters, Clifford said out loud, and then shit, as he realised he was recording live. Focus, he told himself, and blasted on his vape. He sat quietly as Marjorie dutifully read him out the health warning. He looked at the moon. The mirror would be coming into shot in just a few seconds. He zoomed out a bit to check it was in line, and then zoomed back in, the autofocus working perfectly. The mirror came into view from the side of the shot. It was 10 metres across and made perfectly flat with lasers. He had been instructed it had been cleaned just an hour ago. He could see his house come into view as the image of Earth bounced back off the moon mirror. A little fuzzy at first, and then crystal clear as the molecular reconstruction tidied up the view and erased the atmospheric shift. The mirror moved steadily. He could see the dome, and then the room he was in, and then himself. There he was, sitting right next to the circle of the telescope's lens in his big house on his own. He was looking directly at the top of his own head. He stuck his left arm out to the side, and then, sure enough, he watched himself do it through the telescope 2.6 seconds later. "House lights off," he barked at Marjorie, and then 2.6 seconds later, the image went dark. "Undo," he said, a pause, and then the light came back on. He could see himself again. "I've done it," he thought. "It actually works." He stood up without thinking and raised his arms to the sky. "I am seeing the past," he shouted, and then saw himself do that through the lens a moment later, and he laughed with joy. He sat back down. All he could do was watch. 15 years, he thought, with a smile. "I've done it." He knew he had another 35 seconds left with the mirror in focus. He looked upwards so he could look at his own face. It looked back at him shortly after. This strained his neck a bit, so he faced forward again. That was when he saw it. Right in the centre of his own head. He zoomed in further. A bald spot. A fucking crop circle. He moved his hands up and felt his hairless patch for the first time, and watched with despair as he saw himself do the same through the mirror. He saw the edge of the mirror come into view. His time was coming to an end. The mirror rolled out of view, and Clifford was left looking at the moon. Its craters, mountains, and deserts rolling by. It felt like he was seeing the moon in a new way tonight. He stayed watching, transfixed. The moon looked old.